Hello and welcome to Mike's RC Review. My name's Michael and I'd like to thank you all for joining me on this episode of my channel. I'd like to give a big shout out to my subscribers and also a shout out to Jose and Tomas. You guys know who you are. I enjoy the chats that we have together, especially when you guys send me messages and I end up replying to you. So thank you for all the support that you give me. And I hope that I can continue making videos that you guys will watch. This video, unfortunately, being that it's been a little bit busy of late, I've been a little bit busy of late, is not going to be a run video yet, but it will be very shortly. As long as I get enough time in the next few days, I will do a run video of this vehicle for you guys. But this is basically just to formally introduce you to this new addition into Mike's RC Review fleet, one of two. As you guys know, this is the other one that I've got, the RC4wd Land Cruiser, which previously was actually the TRX4 Land Rover D110. Now, you'd see that there's a little bit of a combo going on here because the reason I chose the Defender and the Land Cruiser is I wanted both of those models mainly because they are the epitome of four-wheel driving. If you ask any expert at all in full four-wheel driving, they will of course tell you two vehicles, a Land Rover Defender and a RC4wd Land Cruiser. I'm talking whether you actually live in the Northern Hemisphere or Southern Hemisphere, it doesn't really matter. Both these vehicles are well known, even though the Land Cruiser is not, this iteration of the Land Cruiser, the RC4wd, is not a vehicle that is sold in the United States. It is sold pretty much almost everywhere else, and that's because the US has their own market when it comes to those sorts of vehicles. I mean, they've got the big trucks that they call that we call four-wheel drives. They've got the Chevy Silverados, the Ford F-150s and stuff like that. So they've got a different market to cater to different needs, whereas in our country, in Australia, we cater to simplicity more than anything else. The Land Cruiser RC4wd has not changed for a very, very, very long time. It's been sold in Australia since I think 1970s, and it's been pretty much the same shape ever since. Just like the Land Rover Defender that originated from the UK, which hasn't changed shape until now, until very recently with the introduction of the new Land Rover Defender, which in my point of view isn't exactly a Land Rover Defender, because yes, it does have the heritage of Land Rover Defender in both name and brand and ability. It looks nothing like the previous Land Rover Defender, which is a boxy, unaerodynamic tissue box on wheels. So in saying that, it is a lovely looking vehicle, the new one. So look, in this review, it's basically to review the outside of the vehicle in respect to what I've done on the outside, because I did do a video on the internal workings of this vehicle, why I chose the motor that I chose and what it has inside, what servo it's using. I don't join competitions, and I'm not a member of a club, and also I don't have any plans on doing so. So the reason why I chose the cheaper servos is because of that. Because look, I could have purchased the Reefs 777, which costs around about $330, $340 Australian. But that would have meant, leaving something out. Because when I set myself a budget, I try to stick to it, to the T. And that's how I've been able to fund my hobbies. There's a lot of people that have a budget but then go over it, and that's fine. If you guys can, if people can afford to do that, why not? For me, it's not about affordability; it's about functionality, and it's also about being able to be disciplined enough to set yourself a goal and a budget, and to stick to it. And I've done that on my plane. I've done that on the Traxxas TRX4 when it was a Defender. And I've now done it on the RC4wd Land Cruiser, and I've done it on the Land Rover. So with the Land Cruiser, I went over by $50, and that really, it got to me in the end. I was thinking, well, I shouldn't have done it, but I did. The Traxxas went over by $80. The plane went over by $150. This actually was spot on. I budgeted $3,000 for it, and I'm spot on at 3,000. So I don't calculate my time and energy, obviously the labor I put into it. I don't calculate that in a dollar sense because I cannot. I'm not selling these items. So the fact of the matter is I can't, say I'm going to charge myself $500 for labor. It doesn't work that way. If I got a hobby shop to assemble it for me, then yes, it would have cost roughly $500 more because it's their time and labor, and they charge around about $100 per hour, roughly. And it took, more or less around about 5 hours. It'll take up more or less 5 hours for a professional to assemble everything that I did on this, whereas it took me roughly 15 to 16 hours because I'm still new to things. And the front bumper alone took roughly 4.5 hours because of the little screws that they've got, even though I've got all the tools I need now. The problem is they don't come with instructions, and it's a 3-piece bull bar that you still have to put a winch on and wire it up and all that stuff. And it just, it's a nightmare to do if you're not used to doing it. So the more you do it, the more you learn. The outside stuff on this is not as apparent as the Land Rover Defender was in the D110 that I did when it was a Lexan Traxxas body. It's got the same stuff, but it's not as showy as that. I wanted to go low profile on everything, so I chose the low profile bumper without hoops. I didn't want any hoops, I didn't want any interruptions, I just wanted a metal front bumper that looked elegant, looked tough, and looked the part, and also that can hold a winch, and this does. And I wanted something that will expose the winch as well. I didn't want something that will hide the winch. The winch itself is a $50 item. It costs money, and I'm not going to use it. As I said, I've got no purpose for a winch because I don't really do competitions. But in saying that, if I'm going to spend $50 on something, I'm damn well going to show it. So I wanted something that would expose the winch, and this one did. But because the bumper is a CC hand part, it's a very expensive part. This actually ends up costing $140 when all that's said and done, plus the winch. The winch was $60 all up with the winch controller. And the winch controller is operated by this remote, which at the moment it's not turned on because there's no battery for the winch itself. I don't have a 2S LiPo that's small enough to fit in the body along with the actual LiPo to power this up that will fit on the body. So I need to get something that's around about that big, that's either a 2S LiPo or a very small 1S LiPo that will power up the winch. And I'm looking at batteries at the moment, so hopefully very shortly I'll be able to show a working representation of this. The D-links I have repurposed from the 110 that I've still got. The 110 body I will keep. It's a Lexan body, as I said, but eventually I will actually buy a second-hand TRX4 Sport or TRX4 Premium, just depending on if there's one that comes up. But I will buy one just so that I can actually give that to my 4-year-old daughter who loves to crawl. And I do give her this one or the Land Cruiser. She can drive any of them anytime she wants. When she gets bored, she says, "Daddy, can I borrow one of the remotes?" And I said, "Yep, here you go." So she does drive them. And I did build this second one so then when I go crawling with the Land Cruiser, she doesn't just stand there doing nothing because she's always with me. She can actually crawl along with me as well. So that's the reason why I built this one, and it's the reason why I did do it to spec. For those that aren't familiar with this brand, it is an Rc4wd Gelande 2 D90 Defender. The reason I chose the D90 short wheelbase, not the 110, is because 2 reasons. I had the 110 already, and the other reason is I can also fit the Rc4wd FJ40 Land Cruiser onto this chassis, which is something that will be coming. That project is probably going to be around February, March next year. My next project will definitely be the VS410 Ultra from Vanquish. So that will be roughly a December, January build. So in the next few months, my fleet will grow. But obviously, as I said, and this is the way I do it, because I am not sponsored by anybody, any manufacturers. I'm not sponsored. I don't get any freebies. Everything you see in front of you and you've seen on my channel has been paid for with my money. So for me to be able to do that, I've got to obviously make the money back, and I do have an eBay selling store. So when I make enough money to actually do another build, that's when I do it. So I set myself a budget on how much I think it's going to cost me. I price everything up first, and then I stick to that budget, and I stick to the parts that I want. On the VS410 Ultra, it's not going to be as heavily decked out as this. It's going to be as low of a CG vehicle as I can get it. So I will be focusing on the best motor that I can find, the best ESC I can find, the best steering servo I can find, and it will be kept to that. All the external stuff will be kept to a minimum because it will be a rock crawler. It will be getting damaged by rolling and stuff like that. That's the reason why I won't be putting any roll cage, any roof racks or anything that will just come off when it rolls. So the VS410 Ultra will be my ultimate crawling machine, whereas these two vehicles here will be my scale machines. And then when the FJ40 comes, I can then interswap this body with the FJ40. Unfortunately, with the TRX4, it's going to be a Land Cruiser for the rest of its life because it's just too hard to keep messing with the body. With the killer body LC70, it's just too hard to keep taking it off and putting it back on and interswapping it with anything else. It's just way too hard, too much BS involved in doing it. It takes hours, and I only have two hands and nobody's here to help me, so at the end of the day, I'm going to keep that as it is. Whereas this one here can be interswapped with, as I said, the FJ40, and eventually I'll be getting a pickup version of the D90 as well, which is going to be an RC4 drive body. The body that they used for the Heritage Edition, which is a licensed Land Rover body from RC4 drive, with the opening doors, opening hood, and opening rear tailgate. So that body also comes as a two-body system, so you can actually have it as a station wagon or the pickup version. So, and I can paint that in my own color scheme. And when that arrives, eventually, I will then use this as my bash body. So this will be the body that I'll use when I want to crawl on rocks and scratch it up. So there's a few builds in the pipeline for next year, and hopefully everything goes to plan. But then again, with plans, they are also sometimes things that don't happen. So just have to see how it pans out and what happens. So the bumper I've covered, the winch I've covered, the lights I've also covered in the previous video. As you know, if you watch the previous video, you'll know that the RC4 drive RTR does not come with light buckets for any lights bar the front lights. So the only light buckets you'll find on this particular RC4 drive body are the fronts. The rest, which are the markers and the rear tail lights, I've had to just do a little bit different. I've got LED lights from Killer Body, which came with light holders, LED light holders, and I just recessed them a little bit outwards, then stuck them on with hot glue, and it still transmits the light from the actual LED to the front of the light itself. So a little bit of a modeling trick, but it works, and obviously if something can work, make it work. The other thing I've done is I have used the Proline Hyrax tires for this build. I do have a spare set of not RC4 drive. I've got a spare set of Proline BF Goodrich KM3 Class 1s. These are actually Hyrax Class 1, so they're 4.19 outer diameter. These are the biggest tires that you'd probably put on this body. Being 4.19, they are Class 1, as I said, so they are competition ready. But I've had to, even at 4.19, I've had to trim some of the fender to actually make them fit without rubbing. This body from factory takes a 3.95mm outer diameter tire on a 4.19 beadlock. You can put a 1.55 beadlock with a 4.0 inch outer diameter tire, which fits perfectly, but it just looks too small. It just looks way too small. And because a smaller tire will then lower the stance even more, will mean that you don't have the clearance that you need to crawl over bigger obstacles. In this case, I've gained a little bit of height, so it allows me to do that. The checker plating that you can see is all from Team Rc4wd. This is actually made for the D110 Team Rc4wd Defender, so it was slightly different to the shape of the RC4 drive hood or bonnet, depending on where you're from in the world. So I've had to just cut it into shape to fit this part, so I didn't include these side bits, and I just fitted these side bits as well. So this, and that. It does come with a middle bit, but I decided not to put it on. It just looks very weird. The snorkel I got from Team Rc4wd as well. All the outside bits you see are from Asia Tees, so big thumbs up to them. very good to deal with, despite a few people saying that they haven't been good to deal with them. They have been with me. I can only review that company as to how they treated me, and they treated me well. Their shipping method is good. As long as you choose FedEx, you won't have an issue. Don't even bother paying the DHL one, which is the most expensive one, because unfortunately in my region, in Victoria, especially country Victoria, DHL don't deliver. They actually do outsource their deliveries as soon as they hit Melbourne Airport, which means those outsourced companies will then not care about you as a customer because you didn't pay them or contract them. In this case, I used FedEx for this delivery as opposed to DHL on the Land Cruiser Extras delivery, and I'm a lot happier with FedEx. They got it to me within 4 days, and it was FedEx from Hong Kong all the way to my door. It was a FedEx van that was that delivered my items. So I'm very happy with that, and they were $40 cheaper. So for those who live in Melbourne, Victoria, in Victoria region, regional Victoria, choose FedEx, not DHL. It'll get to you quicker. The suspension, I did give you guys a brief outlook on them on the previous video, but they are the Proline Pro Scaler dual rate, using 100 weight for the front, 80 weight for the front, 100 weight for the rear, and the rear is the Boom Racing scale shock setup for the rear, and it does a great job. I've got the same articulation as if I used that style or that method. I've also got the same linearity and the same absorption, and I love it. I love the way that works, and I just wish more people would use it, and I wish more hobby companies would be utilizing this setup for their RTRs, but they don't. And for me, this works perfectly for what I do, which is just trailing. As I said, Proline shooters, which I've had before on previous videos, but now sporting the Hyrax tires instead of the BFGs, and now sporting Class 1 4.19s instead of 4.75s, and they work perfectly. Proline to Proline. Try and stick the same brand wheel with the same brand tire. You won't have any issues. It's only when you go different branded wheels and different branded tires, that's when you get fitting issues. And it's not all the time, but you do. This one's a VM Racing low profile roof rack, and I intentionally bought that. I intentionally did not want any exoskeleton because it just adds more weight to the top. I wanted this to be as top light as I can because it's a Defender, and all Defenders are top heavy, and the side hilling capabilities of Defenders in the hobby world are very shit. This will sidestep around about 25 to 30 degrees, just as they do in real life before it actually tips over. The real life 1-to-1 version sidesteps around about 25 to 30 degrees as well. And funnily enough, the up version, so the angle that it can take on a climb is the same as a 1-to-1 as well. So this one can actually climb up to 50 degrees nose up before it actually topples backwards. And I've had to add weight on the front of that to achieve, on the front of this to achieve that, and weight on the front tires. I've got 150 grams per front tire, and I've got 400 grams on the front, which are alloy weights that I've got all over the place that amount to 400 grams. And they're basically wheel weights that you get from your tyre centre. Low profile LED light from Team Rc4wd, and the Team Rc4wd boxes and the water jugs or water canisters and everything you see there. And also the Max Tracks are all from Team Rc4wd. They only add around about 100 grams of weight, 350 for this, so 450 grams on the top, roughly 400 grams on the front, and then another 150 per front wheel, so that's 300 grams plus 400, that's 7, so 700 grams all up. And that's enough weight to counteract that that top weight here. And it gives me good climbing ability and decent sidestepping, side hilling. As I said, the side hilling on Defenders is roughly 25 to 30 degrees, and this is what that does as well. Finally, the rear bumper with the tyre holder, scale shovel, and the Yar Racing ladder. And also, these ones here are meant to be door protectors, but I've had, because this is not, these were meant for the D110. So I used this one here for the rear part of the station wagon bit, them for the doors, but then I had two spare ones which are made for the back part of a D110, and I just used it for the roof as a grab handle and also as a tie down. And I used the other spare one for the front. It's not meant for there, but I used it anyway. It looks all right. The checker plating on the side was meant for a 110 as well, so I had to cut them and then rejoin them on this part here where the door starts and ends, the door seam, and it works perfectly, but you have to actually screw them into place, or else you're going to be getting a flap out all the time. So that covers basically all of the outside bit of the Defender, guys. Quickly, just very quickly, for those that haven't watched the previous video or don't intend to watch it, this is powered by a Hobbywing brushless quick run fusion motor and ESC combo. So it's a motor, 540 size motor, and an ESC stuck behind it. So there's no separate ESC, and it's brushless, 1800 kV, 2S to 3S LiPo compatible. And I'm using the LW25MG high voltage 7.4 volt 25 kilogram waterproof servo from Power HD, and I am also utilizing the FlySky GT5 6-channel transmitter along with the Team Rc4wd winch controller and winch. So I've changed all the electronics on this. There's no more RC4 drive electronics on it. So the receiver, transmitter, servo, and the motor. There are no other stuff on it because it's a simple single speed transmission, and completely locked front and rear diff. So it's not like the Traxxas that uses an extra 3 servos. This is just basically a single servo and a motor and ESC. So very simple. The RC4 drive brand is one of the holy grails of crawling. Unfortunately, though, the build as a rating, and this is a review channel, so I'll review it for you now. The assembly quality, I would rate 5 out of 10 because they do not put any thread lock on any of their bolts. So you have to completely strip everything, all the bolts off, and thread lock all the components that you need to thread lock, like the bolts that hold the transmission into place, the servo tray into place, the suspension bolts into place. So stuff that you don't want falling off on your trail. And that adds another, 4 or 5 hours of your time if you do it slowly, 2 or 3 hours if you do it fast, because you have to thread lock each and every one of them and tighten them up again. So it defeats the purpose of buying an RTR. So assembly, I would give 5 out of 10. Quality of build, I'd give 7 out of 10. Not too bad, not too shabby. But being a 2014-15 released body, yes, back then it was obviously less technology as today, but they could have done better. I think, the paint, they could have done a little bit better. It's a little bit too shiny, a little bit toy looking. That's the reason why I've had to put outside stuff on it to make it look more realistic. The overall build quality and materials they used, I'd give around about an 8 out of 10. So everything's metal apart from the shafts, the drive shafts, which you can upgrade, and there is a reason why that's plastic. I think it's because of a shear point that they need. Instead of breaking the diff, if you get stuck on something or hung up on something, they'd rather you break this shaft here because it's a lot cheaper to replace, and that does make sense. But everything else within the RTR is metal, as RC4 drives are known for. And overall drivability, it doesn't compare to the Traxxas because I started off with that, so I'm used to that. It's got the locking, unlocking diffs, better turning circle, and 2-speed transmission, so it's faster. But then again, it's more cumbersome. There's more stuff on that, more stuff to break. Whereas this it's a simple setup, as I said. That's why it's one of the holy grails of crawlers. It's a single speed transmission with a single steering servo. That's all you've got to worry about. And drivability, I would rate, solid 7 out of 10. It just doesn't compare to the Traxxas in terms of usability and drivability indoors. It drives perfectly outside because there's more space, and you don't notice the fact that all the diffs are locked, or both diffs are locked. Whereas with the Traxxas, you can unlock them when you're inside the house, as I said, and have a shorter or a tighter turning circle. Whereas this, the turning radius is massive because front diffs are locked, rear diffs are locked. So that's the reason why. But the other thing is it's noisy. The gears are noisy. The gearing system is noisy, even though it's a smooth gearing system, smooth axles, smooth everything, except the fact that they don't have any lubricant in there. So I'm gonna obviously put grease in the axles, and I'm gonna put grease in the transmission when I do the next overhaul. But I will drive it for around about a month like this. I don't have my crawlers anyway, so it ends up being used fairly lightly. Any questions, guys, please let me know. If give me a thumbs up if you like how it's ended up. Give me a thumbs down if you don't like how it's ended up. But let me know if there's anything that I can answer or anything you want to say, and I do try and respond to everybody that sends me messages. But thank you for your support, guys. Really appreciate it. I've singled out Tomas and I've singled out Jose on this review because I have talked to them in the previous video, and they've been supporting my channel now for the past few videos that I've released. So thank you very much, guys. And for all those who are new to my channel and subscribed, thank you. And thank you also for spending the minutes of your lives you'll never get back on this channel and watching the video that you've just watched. So peace out, guys. Please stay safe until the next video. I look forward to seeing you guys again. Cheers.